Welcome, Beth. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks, Deborah. It's great to be with you today.
Good. Right. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And today we're going to talk about everything, all things finance and mindset and money. So I'll let you do a little bit of intro for everyone about what you do and how, your story and where you've come from and what you're doing now.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Beth Clay, for anyone who doesn't know. I technically now own two businesses. So one is Financed Well, which I set up about 18 months ago, working with Deborah. And you very closely with this in terms of getting it from concept to an actual profitable business.
Yep.
And this very much works with coaching individuals, couples, and corporates around how to manage money, but also have a holistic, healthy relationship with it. So I look more on the holistic side of finance, which I think for a lot of us, it's missing in our lives. So that's kept me very busy. I'm sure we'll talk through more in terms of my kind of journey there, but it has been great. I built a lot of the business whilst I was working very much in a probably 8 till 6 job. I used to work for a very big PR company, international PR company, looking at kind of financial, but also healthcare communications. So I had the background there, but I don't come from a typical accounting or financial background, which
Yeah.
kind of sets me apart in that sense. So it was quite a journey for me to go through to build it. So I have that business and that side, and then I've also, because I've got the 16 years of experience in communications, I used to work for previous prime ministers back in the UK as well, on their communication strategies. I wanted to help founders, SMEs, and leaders improve their visibility in their communications. So I'm supporting a lot of businesses at the moment with their brand strategy and finding their voice and their positioning in the market from a communications perspective. So I've set up my other business, which is Creative Clay.
Amazing. Love that. I mean, full entrepreneur spirit there. See?
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive in. So I want to talk about the mindset around being an entrepreneur, deciding to be an entrepreneur, like that switch, like let's talk a little bit about what happens when you're in your 9 to 5, how you feel, like what is the feeling of wanting to break out into entrepreneurship, and then what does it take to take that step? Like what are the steps that happen in your mind? Not so much financially, but just first of all, like what are the steps that happen in your mind to get you there? And then what are the worries about finance? And then how do we solve those problems?
Yes. So a lot to unpack,
Yes.
but yeah, yeah. So as I explained, I mean, I've been doing, obviously worked corporate 16 years. So used to work in the civil service, as I mentioned, in kind of with previous prime minister, and it was very exciting at the time. And I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it in the moment. And actually, there was something around working in that environment of the safety net. And we'll come through this because I think this is where a lot of that mindset shift is. It comes from being that safety net of knowing you have a salary, you have protections, and certainly in the civil service, gosh, you couldn't work any more safer. You
Yeah.
were your pension sorted, your maternity was sorted, like everything was wrapped up. You were looked after for life. But I feel like I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit in me to
Mm.
want to break out and do my own thing. And I kind of, I suppose, for a long time wanted to work through the career ladder. And I would say also in the UK, I think I wouldn't say I was around many entrepreneurs, or
Mm.
there wasn't that entrepreneurial vibe, or the people that I knew were all in safe jobs, let's say.
Right. Yeah.
So
Some of the
it
people you
wasn't
spend your time with.
exactly. And I think it was when I came to Dubai, I obviously moved to a very big international corporate firm, and it was brilliant, great experience, great exposure. But I started to feel this buzz almost of being in Dubai, and I've been in Dubai now
I know
in January.
exactly.
So
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. I felt it too.
like being here 2.5 years and just being around people, and I found that fire inside me that was like,
Mhm.
gosh, yeah, I could really make a difference, and I could do this, and I could build a business. And
Mm.
you just around people, and it's just the people that you connect to and you attract, and you're like, wow, there's all these people who set up businesses,
Mm.
and I could do that, and I have an opportunity here. And I can't explain why I didn't feel that way in the UK, but I think it's maybe the safety net and that feeling of, and I go back to the point, like I have two little ones as well. So
Yeah.
they were really little when we moved over here. And so the job that I had at the time was safe. And then moving over here, I kind of wanted to just get feet under the table and get established and get experience, obviously working in the region, which is what happened. But the more I was into it, I was like, is this it? Like, and I'm not blaming corporate organizations, but often I feel like we're put many of us into a box without the organization meaning to. But there's a bit of a limit in terms of, unless you go through the promotion cycle. Some companies, obviously, you can do that.
Yeah.
But that feeling of creating something that's yours, that you own, that you can influence, and that you can control is always meant so much to me, and I've always wanted that. And as I said, I kind of like had the idea around wanting to do stuff around helping people manage money and the financial side, and seeing that people resonating with it when I started talking about it on social media more and kind of that sort of thing, and feeling that buzz. And I was like, I actually think this could take off. And that's obviously through your course, and that obviously that helped a lot of that mindset work that we did. But that feeling of, and I think it's breaking through that sense of, we've always, all of us, or a lot of us have been taught like, work hard, like go to school, go to university, get a job, work hard, stay in that job, move different jobs, like we've never drilled into us really at school or university, you can do your own thing, like you know, you can go be your own boss. And so within that mindset of, if we move out of this comfort zone where we are, what we know and what we hear in those people around us, that's the fear of the unknown, and we're going to like lose loads of money. And I think that's what a lot of us think, like it's going to cost a lot of money to set up a business, or what if it doesn't work out?
It's the unknown. It's the unknown, isn't it? It's like taking a step, especially like you said, like I love that kind of realization that, you know, you're in and around people that are not setting up businesses, and therefore it's not part of the conversation. And you can't look to people to say, well, when you set up your business, how did that go? And how long did it take you to make money? And how did it work? And just being in and around that conversation, finding your tribe when it comes to entrepreneurship is so, so important. And then having people that are further along on the journey than you, that so you can look to say, okay, well, I can model myself on what they're doing so that I can do the same. Even if it's one person, at least you've got somewhere to go, especially if your circle of people are in 9 to 5s. I think that's super, super important.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And even now I look at the people when I joined my company as well, which is a credit to my company really, like, but most of them on average have been there between 8 and 12, 15 years, if not longer, you know, like, and that's amazing. But I felt this fear, even though I love the company I work for, I was like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I want to do my own thing. And there's no limit to what I can do. It's that mindset of, I know, and like you said, being around people and seeing people and believing that it's possible to do that, and that, you know, when we look on social media, all of us do, and we're like, oh, look at that business, and they're doing this, and they're doing all these amazing things. And but then a lot of us held back by that belief that, oh, they maybe had a trust fund, or they had loads of money, or they had this, or, you know, like it is hard. It is hard to kind of break through that mindset. And I would say as well, one of the challenges for me, you know, like when you're married as well, well, it both challenge, like obviously if you're not in a relationship, we're in a relationship, but it affects both of you, you know, like, and for me, that was a really big part
especially when you have kids, because
when
it's not just you've got little humans to look after, you know.
And you've got those responsibilities. And I think for a lot of people, we are held back. And, you know, in my situation, I've been quite open, and my husband went my same, but I was always the higher earner in the relationship, in the family. And so that probably was one of the biggest things to overcome. And we'll talk about it more, but I kind of made sure that we set up different investments so that there were little, I love my buckets, talk about buckets of things to lean on. But that was a hard thing, you know, to say to him, like, to have that conversation, say, listen, you've got to trust me. I really want to make this work. I want to start my business for us, for the better, for the family. And I believe that in doing this, you know, and one of the other factors, I think, for me, going backwards a little bit, is I wanted to have the opportunity to travel around the world and work from wherever, and not be tied to an office that I had to be in 3 or 4 days a week. You know, have those, even though the kids were on holiday, I could still be near them, or working. Even if I was working, I could work from anywhere. And that was one of the biggest motivations for me to do my own business, to work from anywhere. And what I really, really put forward for that, you know, when we had those conversations with my husband, said, like, this is really what means a lot to me, and I will give everything. And he always knew I had a strong work ethic. I do. But actually coming to it together is, because it's a huge thing. It massively affected the balance in the, you know, the family, or how we kind of been set up, and that safety net of my job being always the one that, you know, and it kind of shift in dynamics there.
And I think that comes to a great point, which is like, you know, starting up a business is never, it's never a you know, a linear decision. Like, when I started this business that we're in now, the coaching business, my husband decided that he was going to quit his job and start trading the stock market in Australia. And we were in Dubai at the time. So he was working from like 1 o'clock in the morning till like 7 o'clock. And I had a newborn baby. So I was doing the night shift and I had my consultancy at the time. So I was dealing with that and thinking about starting a new business. So it's like, but at that time, we took our life savings and invested it into trading. And it's like we had to make that decision. And I had to say, like, okay, I'll run the business, I'll make the money while you go away and learn how to trade the stock market. And it's like, there's so many things to take into account when you're starting a business, and the situation that you're in with your husband, your wife, your partner, your kids. It's such a big decision to make, and I think that's why a lot of people stay in fear of just keep it as it is, stay in the same lane, and like do the thing. But what can take us from that fear is the plan. First of all, I think you made a good point about being around the people that you can see the path, because seeing the path is super important. And then
Yeah.
second of all is having some form of plan. Maybe you can build in that safety with the if you've already got a 9 to 5 and you can save and like get things in the bank. Tell us a little bit about how you go from having that conversation and then being like, okay, shit, I've got to now do this because everything's relying on me.
Yeah. So I say, obviously we worked together back in, I want to say like September 23.
Yeah.
Was around that time. And obviously I was like, said to him at the time, I really want to make a go of the business. I was picking up Pinterest. People were really fascinated by the concept of financial wellness
Yeah.
and the opportunities there. So obviously I was like, well, this is what I want to do. And I want to start. And I knew that it was going to take time because obviously I wanted, we had different savings pots, but I wanted to try and build up what I call the Freedom Fund.
Okay. I love that, the Freedom Fund. Oh, I'm adding that to my list of things. I like that. Keeping that.
And that can mean many things. But for some people, it can mean getting out of a relationship. Do you know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah.
various bits and pieces. But yeah, I think it's important to have the Freedom Fund, as I called it. So what I started to do, and obviously when we worked together, I kind of said at the beginning of, so end of 2023, I wanted to be out of my job by the end of just gone 24. And I knew it was probably going to take about a year to save
Yeah.
up the money to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so I kind of work through, and this is what I encourage clients when I work with them as well, is how much were the expenses that we needed to kind of like get us through sort of 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
Now, for some people, it depends on businesses wise, and this is why I kind of say it can vary. For people who, let's say you quit your job today and you haven't got a business idea and you're starting tomorrow, that's going to take you longer, like 9 to 12 months you want to be looking at.
Yeah.
Because I already had that and was able to build it up whilst I was working in my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It was, I hadn't, that money, I didn't need as much sort of thing. So I worked out what I needed to kind of have. But yeah, between the 6 and 9 months of kind of expenses. So we sat down, we did the spreadsheet and looked at what have been our expenses for the last 3 months, 3 to 6 months going backwards on average.
Mm-hmm.
So we could really map out and say, okay, let's take out, yeah, there is the fun stuff obviously that we want to do. We did factor in some of that, but what does it look like in terms of, what does 6 to 9 months, if I don't get much business and it's very small amount of business, what does that look like? And that's one of the key things that I talk to people about, because hopefully you will have stuff coming through, but there is a process. And one of the things I particularly find on the corporate side as well, for me, getting on, I've got lots of corporates ready to sign me up, which is brilliant, but there's a vendor process. Mm-hmm. So it's like, there's going to be a point in which you're going to do that, but it might take a few months to kind of get to that perspective, that point.
Yeah.
So I kind of had the plan in terms of, okay, what is the expenses that we would need as a family to set aside? And then separately, what were the expenses? And this is one of the big things that I think I didn't realize how much the costs were going to be, but it's like I factored it all in, but really accounting for every single business cost as well. Because there's a lot of, particularly if you're coming from somewhere like Dubai and you've been on someone else's visa and everything else, you're now in a different position where you've got to set up your own visa, a license. You don't know all the things, you have to have all the activities that's under the license and all the other elements, obviously around medical. Everything is on you, and that sounds scary. And a lot, I think, if I'm honest with you, I talk to people and colleagues of mine, they're like, that whole process holds them back. They're like, the admin of the FAF and everything else, and
100%.
That holds people back of like, I don't want to go through all that headache.
Well, actually, starting a business in Dubai under the umbrella of it doesn't feel easy in terms of like, yeah, it's a bit of a headache, but actually when you know what you're doing, it can be
Yeah.
quite straightforward. Like when you've like, there's a certain set of like places that you can go if you've got certain types of businesses. Once you've established that, it's like, okay, this is how you go. And the system in Dubai is so good compared to what it used to be like 10 years ago. Honestly, 10 years ago, when I moved from a free zone to a DD, the paperwork, I'm not joking, was, 20 centimeters high. You would not believe. Now everything's digital and it's like all, it's a lot easier to do. But with that said, there are costs involved in that. And some businesses can get, the social media, online businesses and be really, really basic. And other ones can be middle of the road, 6 grand, and others can be 50. So it's just kind of knowing where you sit. But I
Yeah.
think, we're going to talk about this more as we move on. And I've got something that I can share that's a download as well that got that information included. Um, but I think, yeah, having that mindset of not knowing, and I think that's a lot in
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. It's just you don't know, so therefore you don't do.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think this, like you said, I think that's super helpful to have that downloaded, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's because I think often you need that help of kind of like, what are all the costs involved and what do I need to do?
Yeah.
As I said, we'd map that out as part of the plan of saying, okay, so there's the expenses and then of like day-to-day living, and then there's the how much is this all going to cost us?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, as you said, for us, we built in that freedom fund plus business expenses into
Yep.
that bracket, and then started to think about, okay, from our budget each month, how much can we put aside of that? So work backwards. And
Hmm.
so we were able to work backwards and say, okay, if we put this aside, this chunk of money for the next 12 months, we'll get to that point where you've got that runway for the
Yeah.
next like 9 months down the road.
Yeah.
So we won't feel it so much. So we can
Yes.
not feeling that stress and that pressure to kind of be like it's all going to come in like, now, which
Yeah.
obviously is coming in and
Yeah.
it is there. But in my mind, and I think this helps with the mindset, and this is why I talk to people about doing this, is have that safety, comfort, that cushion
Hmm.
for you regardless. And you're most likely you are going to be earning, it's going to be on
Yeah.
great money, but having that cushion and building up that cushion changes that fear, like sorts that fear in your mind that I won't have enough to start a business. I can't have enough to, what happens if it doesn't work out?
Yeah.
And so you've got that cushion in place that if things fall on, unexpected expenses come through, whatever it is, you've got that money to tide you over for that period of time.
And
And
I think,
so,
yeah, I think
yeah,
that also moves into like when you're running your business as well, keeping that cushion or because I do that in my business, I keep a really nice cushion in the bank so that if like you say, if you decide, okay, I'm going to go and do this marketing or this big expense has come along or the licensing change or whatever it is, that you've still got that built in. So doing it from the beginning is actually a really good way to start out when you're building your finances into your business.
absolutely. And the one thing that I say to people as well is, so I say that's one element of building up that, but having a think about before you're finishing the corporate job and moving to the obviously doing that as well, like what other ways can you bring in extra income or passive income? So some of the ways in which kind of I built up different income streams, is thinking around like investing in real estate, a little bit of real estate we're able to kind of get some of that, the
Mm.
little bits of passive income, so that kind of tied us up, so we have multiple different bits of income kind of coming through, dividends from stocks, those sort of things. So there's ways in which we can access different parts of money should we need it, and I think that is what I also encourage people to do as well when they're
Yeah.
thinking about it,
Yeah.
in terms of where to put your money so that you're able to kind of still support yourself through different ways, alongside, so you're not reliant, and this is one of the biggest things I tell people as well, is don't be reliant on just one thing.
Yes.
Most
Yeah.
millionaires out there have an average 7 income streams, so
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, your business will be a big part of that, but think about other ways in which income's coming into you,
Yeah.
because that then also helps that mindset as well. And I think when we set, and I go back to the point, is that when we set that ambition of me leaving corporate, going full time on the job, like on the business, there are sacrifices that you're going to make, and it's sometimes hard, like we probably didn't go on many holidays last year at all. In fact, we hardly went on any. And because most of our money was wrapped up into, that was our savings plan.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the Freedom
That's the
Fund was our
sacrifice.
savings
Yeah.
fund
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
last year. That
Mhm.
was everything.
Mm.
Which is why I say it's important, obviously, to get whoever's around you, on the same page, because
Mhm.
it is tough. You both, and for me, I was working long hours, coming back, coaching in the evenings, working all weekends, using pretty much most of my annual leave, which is why we didn't have much holiday, but using that annual leave to go and do the workshops, go and do the coaching, do the trainings, everything else I needed to do,
Yeah.
so that I was ready to be in this position that I'm in now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I say there are sacrifices, and you know this yourself, and I'm no, but it's, if you set that goal and you do it, you will make it work.
Yeah. And I think so you've got the financial kind of padding, let's say. We've got, and then a plan of how we're going to get from, and then really working through the logistics of, is this a good business idea? Will it
Yeah.
make, like I work with so many brands, and one of the first things that we do, we figure out the vision of what we want to create, of course, but then looking at, okay, we've got this vision. We want freedom. We want to, travel. We want to be around the world. We want to work from a laptop. That's great. But if I've got a fashion brand and I need to be in the production in this place, and I need to be in this office to do that work, then that's not going to happen. So does the business equal the vision is number one. And does the vision equal the funds? So are you pricing? I think pricing is such a huge subject for all entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of startup entrepreneurs undervalue themselves and get it wrong, and therefore work a million hours to bring in a basic amount of money. And in reality, it's about the value and the mindset, and really positioning yourself as a good business that knows what they're talking about, that's talking exactly to the right target market, and you can charge the right amount for your products or services so that it equals the vision that you've created. So it's like a 360 operation. And I think without going through that, it just is all too much. It's all too hard. And it's very, very difficult to make that first step. How's your experience been with that?
No, I totally agree with you. And I think the point that you just made, the pricing point, is so interesting because, and I've been on my own journey with it as well, right? And I've done podcasts talking about how to value yourself and, charge what you're worth. But it is tricky because I'll be honest, like there's opposite, like I think one of the biggest things I've found is like on the corporate side of stuff, when you go into like become a vendor on a corporate business and you go through the process of putting proposals out, and this is more on the coaching for people who are coaches and consultants and things like that. What I've found and what people have said is the degree of what people are putting in proposals for is huge.
Yeah.
Massive, from like really cheap to really expensive.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to know where you're coming in, that you're not too high, but you're also not, you're still competitive. And that is, I'd be honest, because I think that is one of the things, and I know I've talked about it quite often, and this is why having obviously your network and having those people to brainstorm and say, is this about right? I think I'm worth this. Is it right?
People pay it.
Am I giving up on a huge opportunity because I'm pricing myself too high, or what should I be doing? And I think that is probably one of the hardest things, is knowing how to price yourself. And when you're starting out, and I'll be honest, and I'll be totally honest with people out there as well, like when I was in the corporate and I had the flexibility, obviously when I was building the business, I did take on a couple of things for free.
Which is fine. I think that's great in the beginning. It's good to learn and to understand what people are wanting and if it's valuable or not. I think it's a good idea to do that as well.
It is, and I agree with you. But I think there's this sense then of, okay, I've done that. I've got the testimonials. This is all great. It's working. Yeah. There's appetite for it. And then what am I worth? And I think I know there's an exercise that you do as well in terms of really mapping out the hours that you're going to do in the day and how much you want to be taking home a month, what's going to pay the bills and what's going to create the vision, and actually how much should I be charging of my time to make sure that I am profitable and it's worth it. And I think it's, both on both sides, from both sides of my business. I think I'm like, on one side, I'm very much more like, yep, this is the cost and things. Another side, probably takes time that even though I've been doing it for 16 years, it's probably more hours because I just put everything into it. That's probably, taken a bit longer of the hours that I probably charge for. So even I find even now, like, I'm still a bit like, oh, okay, this is actually, it's a bit of a learning. It's learning is what I'm saying is, I think, and I'm sure
for me, when it comes to money, we talk a lot about money mindset, and we've been back and forth on money mindset with concept consistent profit. So I think there's, first of all, the fundamentally understanding where you sit in terms of mindset. Like, what do you think, and what are your beliefs? What are your limiting beliefs? What were you taught when you were young? Like, if you were taught money doesn't grow on trees, you're going to be really frugal with what's going on. If you're taught, like, we have to invest to, what's the we have to invest to like make more money, then you're
Yeah.
going to have that mindset moving forward. So what I see a lot of the time now is people that are 40-year-old trying to, do a business are operating on the mindset of their parents, which
Yes.
was 50
100%.
years ago, 60 years ago, where they learned their mindset. And it's like, it is no longer relevant in today's society. It just isn't. So like, if we're working on a mindset that's 50 years old, how are we going to make money today? It's not going to work. So we have to update our mindset. So that's number one, figuring out what it is that you think about money and what are your limiting beliefs. What are your beliefs, core beliefs about what money does, where it
Yeah.
plays a role, and switching that into something that, money can give you the opportunity to do so many good things. It can help you have the life that you want, your vision. It can make you happy. It can make your family happy. It can give your kids a good education. It can help you help other people, especially if you've got a service-based business. Contribute with your business and making money much better than we can if we just give to charity or whatever it is. I think there's a block, especially in England as well. It's like, no, we don't talk about money, and making too much money is kind of vulgar. And it's like, well, if we've got more money, we can do more. We can do more things, and
Yeah.
if we're good people and we're coming from a good place,
Do good things with it.
we can
Yeah.
do more things with it. So I think that's number one, is figuring out where you are and what's happening with your mindset and what your beliefs are. But then the other thing is, when it comes to pricing yourself, I feel is very important, is the energy you bring to it. Because if you're like questioning yourself and you're saying, oh God, is this right? And is it not right? And you're going to go out to people and they're going to feel that. And then they're going to be like, hmm. Whereas if you're like, well, no, this is the price and I'm very
Yeah.
confident, you know that we have interacted with people across the 40 years we've been on this planet. And when someone says to you, yep, that's the price. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's expensive, but I kind of want it now. Whereas if when they're like, people send me emails and they're like, this is the price, but it's okay, totally okay if it doesn't work for you. Like they've already undermined themselves in the email where they told me the price. Like, don't
Yes.
undermine yourself. Tell me your price. Like, it's okay. Like, I'll make up my mind on my own. Tell me your price. Stand there with confidence and tell me, this is what I charge. And that is a process to get from, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to charge, and this is how I'm going to talk about it. Because talking about it and like selling it is a different thing to writing it on a website. So tell me a bit about, just to wrap up a little bit, tell me lastly about, the going out and selling your products and becoming a business that's profitable, and your buffer, and how where you are now.
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, in terms of obviously gone through the whole process of really working out the service offerings that I have on both sides, and obviously going through the process of, like you said, in terms of what they're worth. And I think it does come to a whole process of, like, it's been a year and a half, particularly on that side, building that and kind of working out what people want, where I'm able to add value, and what I should be charging for those services, where it's going to make the difference. And I think it's the point that you just made there about giving your price and standing by that and being
Mm,
confident, because
mm.
there's a heck of a lot of work that I have done and that all of us
Yeah,
who are building businesses have done to get to that point. And we do need to
absolutely.
stand by that.
Yeah,
And I think you're totally right that you made a really good point there about, don't be, getting over that. Is that okay? Is that all right? Like, I
mm.
think it's totally right. And do you know what? All of us, I was, even though I talk about money all the time, I still felt that sense of like, is that okay? Is that price in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
pen?
yeah,
And now I feel like, no, this isn't price. And, I could obviously adapt it for different
yeah,
situations, like
yeah,
scale and stuff like that. But you're right. Like, I've worked so hard to get to this point, and it's worth that time. And I'm worth that. And
yeah,
there's a lot of value that I bring, and being, you know, it's a no-brainer. It's almost
yeah,
walking into that. This is a no-brainer price for you
yeah,
because of everything that's behind
yeah.
and everything that I can give you, and I can make that transformation to you or your employees or whatever it is, and really standing by that.
Mm,
And I think I've one of the guys I spoke to actually, this guy I know who's in the performing arts industry here, and he said to me when I started out, I knew my value. I did so much work, but I was putting in costs and people were rejecting them because they were too much and things like that. And I could have so easily gone back down and been like, no, all right, I'll accept the really cheap offer. And he said, and he turned in the beginning, there's quite a few things he turned down to begin with,
mm.
but it paid off long term,
Yeah.
because the challenge is, and this is the other thing to mention, is to be really careful in places like here, like Dubai, in the region or anywhere. It's a small world. So if you're doing a great job, brilliant, they'll refer you, but they'll be like, how much did you pay for them? And
Mm,
if you're
mm.
going doing them cheap or whatever it is, or
Mm,
under what you know, that's hard. And I think it goes back to the point that you made
mm,
of, you don't want to, yes, it's great that you're getting the business, but are you constantly being at that bracket that you
yeah,
can't get out of because people are recommending you when you're that
yeah,
do you see what I'm saying? So,
absolutely. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that's just where you need to be. It's a real fine balance.
there
And I
is.
think that's really important. And I think the most important thing, and which is what I try and do with my friends and colleagues, or yeah, fellow entrepreneurs, is bounce ideas, have those conversations, and don't be
Absolutely.
afraid. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I've got a really close friend who's a successful coach in Dubai as well. And I spoke to her pretty much like leave long voice notes every single day. You know, testing ideas, like checking things, and really just making sure that, you know, having that mentor, having somebody to talk to as well, that, you know, can really back you and be like, no, actually, yeah, you should go this, or you should do things a bit differently. And I think that wherever you are in a business, you need somebody. All of
Absolutely.
us need
Yeah,
a mentor or a coach
100%. Yeah,
to
yeah,
sense check stuff on.
yeah.
um, Being confident, as you mentioned. But yeah, I think in terms of, I'm super excited. You know,
Mm,
yes, I have the fear that there's always that gremlin at the back of my head that's like, what if it doesn't work out and you have to go
mm.
back to your corporate job?
But
It doesn't
that's
work.
okay also, right? Like, okay, I always say to my husband, as like, when every time we take a risk, it's like, it's always, we can always make money. We can always find a job. We can always go back to whatever it is,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
there'll always be a way. We're never going to be, we just have to take the risk. And sometimes that just frees up my mind to be like, okay, let's go, and
yeah,
that's freedom.
100%.
There's freedom in that as well, isn't there? Thank you
I
so
totally agree with you. No
Thank you
worries.
so much. It's been a great chatting to you. If you can tell everyone if they want to get in touch, if they've got a question, if they want to speak to you about their finances, where do we go? How do we get in touch with you?
Yep. So I'm Finance Well on Instagram, and the new webpage, which is launching soon. So please get in touch with me there. I also have like a membership starting at the end of January into February, which is all about how to manage your money as well, and providing that accountability. So feel free to get involved. And if you're interested in communication side, I've also got the website Creative Clay as well to get in touch on that side.
Love that. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to join the tribe and find people like-minded entrepreneurs, we can go to journeytoselfmade.com and join our mailing list, and you'll get invited to all the lovely events that we've got happening in this year. Thank you so much, Beth. We are going to definitely touch base on some of the other finance things that we have got in the plan for this year. I can't wait to talk to you a little bit more in the future.
Amazing.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.